What's up, everybody? This is Connor and Joshua with Chamber One Tactical. If you've seen, we recently did a video on the Shadow Systems MR920, and today we're doing a video on its little brother, the CR920. So let's get into it. So the first thing we want to get into real quick is, I guess we'll start with the price point of this gun. So the price point we see on this gun is coming in right at $500 to $550, I believe. This one is the Foundation series, so it's got the optic cut, but that's pretty much it for all the frills. But turned out to be a pretty cool little gun. It's about the Glock 43 size. So in comparison, we do have our MR920 here. So if you want to hold that up. So a little bit smaller, like I said, getting into that 43 size. So if you put this one on top of the other, as you guys can see, it's a good bit smaller. So, you know, a very, very nice deep concealment. I guess you could almost consider this like a pocket gun. It's getting in that realm of the really, really tiny, you know, fit in your hand, subcompact guns. So very, very cool. I actually really enjoyed shooting it. It's a neat little firearm, especially for $500 to $550, which is kind of what we see a lot of the Glock style firearms coming in at right now. So we'll go through all the specifics of the gun, what we found while shooting the gun, and just give you guys our overall opinion, which is what we're looking for. So starting it off, I'll just say I actually really enjoyed the sights on this gun. Me and Joshua have talked about before that probably our two hardest hitting points that we talk about are the trigger and the sights. So I did enjoy the sights. It's just your blacked out rear that, you know, has that cut on it that just funnels it in. Very easy to pick up the front sight. Obviously, we have the Holosun EPS carry red dot on here, so that was kind of fun to be able to shoot around with. But I think they did a really good job. They're metal sights. I believe this is tritium filled in the front with the little greenish yellow ring around it, which is very, very easy to pick up, especially where we shoot. We're shooting on white targets, you know, white painted steel targets, so it's very easy to pick up the dot. So really enjoyed the sights on this thing. I think they did a pretty good job compared to other companies coming out with, you know, polymer sights. So
yeah, and like today when we were shooting, it was a very bright day.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times this little red dot was actually too small that I actually picked up the green dot quicker.
Yeah.
So you know, you just kind of run with it, and with this optic especially, you can really co-witness very easy with these sights. They stick up pretty tall.
Right.
And so it's a good setup overall. But I guess moving on to the slide serrations, very impressed with them. They got really good front slide serrations, and it's also very easy to grab from the rear. So very impressed. And of course, it's just a very narrow and thin slide, which makes it real nice and compact, especially for carry.
Yeah, the only thing I noticed about these front and rear serrations is they're not as sharp as the MR920s. They're a little rounded. It's not that it was hard to get a hold of, but the MR920 just has a little bit more grip to your finger.
It had more meat to dive into, though.
But it's still, like, it's very usable, like you said. You know, I think they did a good job, especially with such a small area to use. It worked well. And I think, you know, going on, you know, the finish of the gun is a really, really good finish. I think it's kind of hard to find guns nowadays that they're not trying to put decent finishes on there. But the barrel is a spiral fluted barrel, and you know, we talk about wear every once in a while when we get into guns, and this gun's been shot a lot, and there's really no noticeable wear on it, which is good for us to see that there's no hot spots, which is pretty much what that means. You know, they took the time in making sure that the machining is correct and the gun is working smoothly. So good to see that. Moving on to the frame. The stippling, the way the frame feels in your hand, everything about it, I really think they did a good job on. And I like that they were able to get a rail on here. I know a lot of the 43s, you know, you don't have an option for a rail. It's just the rounded underneath. The 43X, if you get the MOS, has a rail, but you got to get the MOS model to have that. So it's nice to see that they put that on there. You can put you a light on there and have that option. But the stippling, everything is good. We do have some of our traction grips on here, just to give it a little extra, texture, which we do like. But I think they did an excellent job. And again, as we talked about on the MR920, having that extended beaver tail on the back, very, very helpful in not getting Glock bite, especially on such a small gun. So I do like that.
Right. And I appreciate, again, same thing with the MR920, with the CR920, is the stippling right here where you put your pointer finger and also where you point out with your thumb, because it does have that Glock angle just like the MR920. And just, again, making it very repeatable. Every time you go to push that gun out, it just points naturally when you use that technique. So very impressed with that. And then, of course, it comes with 13-round mags, which I guess when it in the gun, it sticks out like this. So just enough so that you can actually wrap your pinky around it. Very comfortable magazine and grip overall, which 13, obviously this came out due to the 43, right? Or the 43.
43 and 43.
And with those being single stack mags, you didn't really have the capacity there. And so I like what Shadow Systems did, is they made it double stack with a steel magazine and was able to give you that capacity. So very impressed with that. They did a good job.
Yeah, and I do believe these are proprietary mags. So that is kind of the one downfall to it, is you're not going to be able to just go get any Glock mag or any Glock clone mag and run it. You are going to have to go with their mags. But
when you look at it as a gun that's not a Glock clone, and you just look at it as a different gun, it's not a big deal, because just about every gun that you purchase is going to have a different mag that's not a Glock mag.
True.
It's just because we have that in the back of our mind that, like the MR920 and other guns that are Glock clones take those mags. But it's not really a huge deal.
So I believe that this gun is pretty much identical to the 43 without the mag in it, but once you add that extended mag, you're pretty much getting to a 43X size, or the 19 length frame. So as you guys can see, it's pretty much flush on the bottom. So that's why I say it's kind of a mix between a 43 and a 43X.
Yeah.
And being able to get 13 rounds, first, when they first came out with the 43 and the 43X before the Shield Arms mags, you were what, 6+1 and I think 10+1 on the 43X. So it's nice to see you get a little bit more capacity in a very, very small gun. And moving on to kind of the last part of the gun as far as features goes, the trigger. I wasn't all that impressed with the trigger. It's not to say that we didn't shoot the gun well, or I didn't. I'll speak for myself. It's not that I didn't shoot the gun well. The trigger, it just wasn't anything exciting to me, especially coming off of the review we just did on the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus Performance Center. This trigger just has a lot of creep in it, and there's no real consistency to it. It's just it creeps all the way back, very similar in my opinion to the Springfield Hellcat Pro, where there's not a very crisp break on it. It creeps, and then finally it'll break. So it was just a learning curve shooting the gun.
Yeah.
It's just a little different. It's not that it's a bad trigger. And like we said, we are very, very hard on triggers. So you may enjoy the trigger, but for me personally, it wasn't my favorite trigger to shoot, just because of that really, really long pull.
Yeah.
And we'll try and get a close-up of that so you guys can see what we're talking about. But
well, and I would just say, so what we got, we had this one that we shot a good bit. And the trigger on this MR920 is a lot better than a Glock 19.
Yeah.
It's got a pretty good, amount of take-up, and it's got a wall. It'll break at the wall, and the reset's nice and short. And then it's right there for the follow-up shot. So no complaints on the MR920. So I kind of expected a little bit more from the CR920. But when we compared it, because we do have a 43X, and we also have the new Palmetto State Micro Dagger.
Yep.
And so we were just kind of comparing the triggers, and surprisingly, it was actually worse than the Palmetto State Micro Dagger and the 43X. And what we expected from the Shadow system is to be a better trigger than the Glock. And it's not the trigger weight isn't too bad, but there's no defined wall. Like even the 43X, it has that defined wall.
Yeah.
And it's at least where it's going to break. And then the reset's very nice and tactile. But this, like Connor said, it's not that bad of a trigger, but it's a little mushy. You never really know where it's going to break. You just pull through it. You just pull through it.
And I would 100% agree with what you're saying. It's not that we didn't notice how, I'm not going to say how bad it was, but we didn't notice how different it was until we started comparing it to our 43X and our Palmetto State Dagger. Because truth be told, the Palmetto State Micro Dagger probably has one of the best triggers, in my opinion, as far as the brake. Now, people don't like the shoe because it's that hinge, but as far as the brake and the reset, it's got one of the best triggers in a subcompact gun out there,
Yeah.
especially for the money. So to see that you're paying Glock prices for, I would say you're getting a lot with this little gun that Glock's not really, putting out right now. It was a little disappointing for the trigger not to be as good as I thought it would be.
I will say one thing it does have is it does have a more comfortable trigger shoe and trigger design than the 43X.
Sure.
A lot better. We had talked about with the 43X with the safety, it kind of tapers towards the middle. So as you pull it, it just kind of wears your finger out after a while. This one's kind of flat across, and so it distributes the weight nice, and just no complaints as far as the trigger shoe.
Yeah, and all in all, I think the gun is a good option. I liked the way it shot. As we were shooting more and more, getting used to the gun, we did find that we were enjoying the actual shooting and that we were getting better with the gun. So we always tell you guys it's more about training than anything. Getting out there and shooting the gun as much as you can, getting familiar with it. You can learn just about any gun that we have trigger-wise as long as you go out and train with it. But I will say, if this is a gun you're going to be using for carry, this is just my opinion. If you're one that likes to shoot a bunch of different guns, this is going to be a little bit. It's going to throw you off.
Yeah,
it's definitely going to throw you off if you go and shoot some 1911s and you shoot some really really high end 2011s or some really good like Timney triggers for striker fire stuff. You go back to this and you're going to notice how different this trigger is, and it's kind of lacking. So just something to know, especially if this is going to be a primary carry gun for you. You need to shoot it a lot to make sure you know exactly where that trigger is going to break.
So, would you recommend that pistol?
I would recommend the pistol because in all the testing that we did, it was very accurate. It was 100% reliable, no issues. And like I said, it grew on me as we shot it, which is good to see. So yeah, I mean, I would 100% recommend it. I just don't know at this point what I would recommend it over. I think it's definitely better than a 43.
Okay, so you would recommend it over the
I would
Glock.
recommend it over a 43 on the standard, and even a 43X because it's about the same size with your extended mag, and you're getting 13 rounds. Which, if we're just talking about the 43X and Glock mags, you're only getting 10 rounds.
Right.
So this is a plus for me. I like all the features, the cocking serrations. It's optic ready. Everything other than the trigger, I really like. So yeah, I mean, I would say this would be a better option for the same money than a Glock.
Okay.
What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend this gun. I overall like it better than the Glock 43X or the Glock 43. If this were to be a long-term carry pistol for me, what I would do is either put an upgraded trigger in it just to fix that one problem, because everything else about the gun I like. Yeah. I really, really like it. It's a good gun. It's just that one little thing that bothers me. It's just the trigger's not where it could have been. Which leads me to, what about the Warrior Poet? Because doesn't that have the upgraded trigger?
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you just go ahead and buy that one instead of this one? And if it was my money, I would just go ahead and buy that one.
Yeah, and I don't know if in other models, even without the War Poet Society guy, without his model, there may be an upgraded trigger in another model.
Maybe.
So that is something to say, this is the lowest, I believe the lowest model that they have. So you may have some other trigger options. But I agree with you. I think if you're going to make this a primary carry, it is a nice gun. It's small, lightweight, everything.
The recoil on it was great for a tiny pistol.
It was amazing. Yeah. So, it really would just need a little bit of a trigger job maybe, or like you said, putting in a different trigger.
Yep.
But all in all, that's the review we have on the CR920. We really enjoyed doing the review. Like I said, I think it's a great little gun, and it'd be a cool one if you guys are in the market for a subcompact little carry gun to go check out at your local gun store. But if there's any other guns you'd like to see us do a review on, just let us know down in the comment section. And any gear, anything like that. If you have any questions about the guns, let us know. And like, share, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.